I'm Lita Leapins.
And I'm Jim Gordon.
And welcome to another edition of Our City Tonight.
Well, we're out here to start the show off where we often start our show at the home of our production partners, Hubcast Media.
And let's get right to Our City Tonight.
This New Zealand Spotlight is brought to you by our friends at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise.
This New Zealand Spotlight takes us to Waihopai Valley in the Marlborough region of New Zealand. Joining us today is the award-winning chief winemaker from Spy Valley Winery. We have Wendy Stuckey. Welcome, Wendy, to Our City Tonight.
Hi, Lita. Hi, Jim. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us on the following morning where you are right now. Wendy, tell us about Spy Valley. All these wine segments we've been doing over the last year with New Zealand, they all have great stories, humble beginnings. I'm looking at Spy Valley. Brian and Jan Johnson start this on land that has been said too hard, too dry, and too unfertile for wine. All these years later, and you're distributing to 35 countries around the world, including big fans here in Canada.
Yeah, great success story for Spy Valley. Brian and Jan Johnson bought the land just around me here back in 1993, and for a period of 7 years they sold to local wineries all the fruit that they were growing. And then they took the plunge in 2000 and decided to launch a wine brand, and then in 2003 built the winery here where I'm talking to you from today. And so the Spy Valley name, that in itself has its own little story. The family had to, of course, come up with a name for the brand, and two of the children of Brian's got involved in a little competition, and they came up with two names. There was Trout Creek and Spy Valley. So there's a river that just runs behind me here called the Omaka River, and so Trout Creek didn't have any connection to the Omaka River, and actually there's no trout in the river behind me anyway, so that name was tossed out. And they decided on the Spy Valley name because the locals call the Waihopai Valley here the Spy-Hopai Valley, because there's a communication satellite base just up the road from us. And you know, that name Spy Valley sort of conjures up lots of different things like secrets, and actually here on our label we have the Morse code, so we sort of integrate different things like this into our story. And the Morse code on our bottle here means for wine lovers.
Now, Spy Valley Winery has long been committed to sustainability. In fact, you tend to the land, caring for that, as well as the people who tend to the land. And so tell us a little bit about why sustainability has been so important to Spy Valley Winery.
Yeah, well, the whole sustainability program starts with the wine industry itself. We were one of the first wineries in New Zealand to actually join the New Zealand Sustainability Wine Program. That was back in 1998. So, you know, sustainability is quite dear to our heart because it's really important that we, you know, leave a solid footprint on the land going forward for the generations to come. That so we, you know, it's really important for us to look after our land, and there are different areas that we do that. We use solar panels. We have reduced over the last number of years the amount of sprays that we've put on our vineyards. We have sheep in our vineyards to sort of help keep the grass down, so that's always quite nice to, you know, see the sheep rolling around at this time of the year. One of our vineyards has got a native wetland where over the last few years we've planted over 1,000 native trees in that region. It's a really beautiful spot up against the Wairau River. And soil and water, of course, are really important to us as well, and so we nurture that quite closely. And of course, people, you know, looking after our people is really important as well.
You've got a lot of awards in your arsenal, in your resume. A lot of awards from America and other places. Can you talk a bit about the wines and the varieties that Spy Valley offers? Of course, Sauv Blanc. Most people in Canada love New Zealand Sauv Blanc, including yours, but talk about the varieties, some of which will be on our shelves this summer.
That's right. Yeah, of course, Sauvignon Blanc's really important to us here in Marlborough. We actually have 5 different styles of Sauvignon Blanc across. We make a lower alcohol called Easy Tiger, and we have a satellite range, which is sort of our easy drinking. You certainly know that wine style is Marlborough, and then of course our Spy Valley range as well, which is the one that we first released when the label first came out. We also have a number of other styles of wine that we make. Pinot Noir. So I've got our satellite Pinot Noir here, so these 3 wines will soon be available in July in British Columbia. So look out for them on your shelves. Other than Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir, we make Chardonnay, Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Pinot Gris, and a little bit of Syrah. So, we've got quite a range, which, that in itself is great for me as a winemaker to be able to produce a full range of different styles of wine for Spy Valley.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing those on the shelf. We want to thank Wendy Stuckey from Spy Valley Winery, the chief winemaker at this great winery. Thanks again for joining us on Our City Tonight. All of the credits, as well as all the information on Spy Valley Winery, will be rolling at the end of the show.
Thank you, Wendy, and thanks for waking up where you are to join us on the show today.
My pleasure, and thanks. It was lovely chatting to you. And if anybody, when you get the chance to actually start traveling again, please come and visit us here in New Zealand. We'd love to see you.
Oh, you can count on us being there. That's for sure. Thank you, Wendy.
This New Zealand Spotlight has been brought to you by our friends at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise.
Well, if you're a regular viewer of the show, you'll probably notice that we like to check in with some of our sponsors every once in a while, and this one has been with us for quite some time. Helly Hansen, a number of stores. You'll find them online, of course. Our old friend, Damien Etchebart, he is the marketing director for Canada, joins us. We're in the Granville store right now. Thanks to Mario for getting us in here. Damien, good to see you in person, and thanks for decking us out here for the interview.
Yeah, looking sharp. Thanks for having me. Welcome to the Helly Hansen store.
Thank you.
Love the clothing. But for our audience, tell us a little bit about the history. 1877, it's kind of an interesting story.
Indeed, yeah. We've been innovating outdoor clothing for 144 years, and as you said, in 1877, Captain Helly Yule Hansen was a fisherman, and back then the fishermen were sailboats, so he was on the water all day and there were no waterproof garments. So he decided to dip his clothing in the linseed oil, which is what they used to waterproof the decks of the fishing vessels back then. So Helly Hansen is actually credited with creating the first waterproof clothing in existence.
Wow.
And all these years later, these decades later, you guys, of course, are all over the world. We've just come out of the winter. We were talking about you, I guess, back in February and wearing your winter wear, which is great. We're now into late spring and into summer. Let's talk a bit about your what you guys are going to be starting to showcase now for customers coming in.
Indeed, it's time to put away those winter parkas and those ski outfits, and time to kind of bring in the lighter weight clothing. So we've got everything to keep you comfortable in all elements, from rain to heavy sunshine with UPF protected clothing. Everything from your adventures in the city and walking the dogs to your adventure in the mountains and also sailing on the water. So for the spring-summer season, we can keep you completely protected, and we've got your back in any kind of adventures that you might go on.
Well, I'm quite fascinated because now I've got to wear a lot of your great clothing, that it's not just for those expert enthusiasts, it's for everybody. You have leisure wear right into the really technical equipment. For our audience, just you guys keep moving along with technology. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So we do leverage our professionals that wear our top-of-the-line hardcore adventure gear, and through those professionals we develop new technologies to keep people dry, to keep the clothing lightweight, yet warm and breathable. So we leverage those professionals in extreme environments and bring all that technology through all of our collections, from urban windbreakers to sun protection t-shirts and long sleeve shirts, to hardcore sailing gear and more marine lifestyle stuff. So anything to keep you enjoying your times outside year round.
And footwear as well. I wanted to bring that up. I wore my boots the whole winter, and I'm just going to quickly say too, the winter coat that I had, it was so lightweight, but I wore it all through the winter. I didn't need something really heavy, and it kept me completely warm.
Yeah, absolutely. Now time to transition you into some rainwear here for our spring.
Yeah, one of the great things you guys have done over the last decade or two, as you were alluding to, is that is to let people know that you can come in and get something casual. Just it doesn't have to be extreme. You don't have to be a super athlete. You've got great stuff just for wandering around the city when we get nice sunshine like
Walking
today.
the dog.
Walking the dog. Yeah, talk a little bit more about what people can find in the, I guess for lack of a better phrase, the casual category.
Absolutely. So we've got quite the assortment for the casual category or leisure wear or your everyday kind of loungewear as well. So everything from protective rainwear when it's raining, you're out walking the dog or doing a walk along the seawall. We can, keep you warm, dry, comfortable, protected from the sun or the rain. So we can find anything from organic cotton t-shirts all the way to some tech kind of t-shirts if there's a little bit of sweat or transpiration going on. So yeah, we've got everything from head to feet to keep you comfortable in the spring, summer seasons.
And Damien, last question. We were talking about sailing wear that you can get here at Helly Hansen. You must tell our viewers the story you told Leah and I years ago about this. Well, to call it a sailing trek would be an understatement. Tell our friends and viewers about this trip you did that you couldn't pay me to do.
Yeah, I was super fortunate, working for Helly Hansen, where we endorse and work with professional sailors. I wanted to kind of experience that, working day in, day out with their imagery and their photos and videos. I was like, man, I want to live in this environment for a little bit. So I took part in the Clipper race and did a leg of it from Cape Town, South Africa to Western Australia and crossed the Southern Ocean. It took us 26 days, but man, those were some of the hardest 26 days of my life. Every day was about 60-foot swells, 40-knot winds. It was kind of like living in a hurricane nonstop while trying to get a sailboat to move fast. So yeah, I got to really put our Helly Hansen gear to the test in some rough conditions, and indeed it worked. It kept me alive. Lived in my dry suit nonstop for a month, and yeah, made it out on the other end. That much wiser or dumber, up to you to decide.
We're looking at photos there, as you can see. Folks.
Yeah, well, I think my Helly Hansen is just going to stay extreme dog walking and then the occasional hike.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Hey, Damien, thanks for having us in your Granville store today. We'll have all Damien and Helly Hansen's information at the end of the show. And thanks to Mario, he's the manager here who had us in. And thanks for decking us out here today, Damien.
Yeah, you're welcome. Looking forward to welcome you in the store.
This segment of Live Debt Free is brought to you by debtco.ca, helping Canadians get out of debt based on ability.
Well, we're back here at Global Restaurant on Georgia Street, part of the popular Global group of restaurants. Global now has a very extended outdoor dining area and great happy hour, as well as lots of new summer cocktails. I am here with Chris Smith, our debt restructuring expert. Chris, last time we were here, we were actually upstairs and inside Global, and we were discussing a topic, credit rating, credit score. We're going to dive a little bit more deeply into that this time.
Yes, we are. You know what? Thanks for having me on. Again, I really appreciate it. We're going to take a deeper look and actually put a game plan together to be able to rebuild your credit after a financial collapse.
Perfect. Now, is there any myths attached to credit score or credit ratings?
There is, and it's interesting. I think the big myth out there is that once you have a financial challenge like a bankruptcy or a proposal that you've got 7 years of bad credit.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And yeah, it's pretty common out there, and I think it's the credit industry, the creditors, the credit reporting agencies. I think they like that out there, but in reality, it's false. You can start building your credit almost immediately, which is fantastic. So the 7 years just doesn't happen. Where it came from is a bankruptcy typically about 9 months long at minimum, and then it stays on your credit report for another 6 years. So they've kind of averaged that up or rounded it up to 7 years, and that's where it comes from. But in reality, you know what? If you follow some key processes and are disciplined, you can build your credit very quickly. Perfect.
Now, how quickly can someone get credit after, say, something like serious, like bankruptcy?
Sure. Yeah, this may be shocking. I always try to bring some interesting information when we meet. And, you could go bankrupt today, and within 2 weeks, you can have a credit card, a secured credit card. You could go bankrupt on Monday, be discharged 9 months from now, and that's all well and fine. But in going bankrupt on Monday, you can be approved for a car loan with a chartered bank by Tuesday. And it's possible to get a mortgage with a private lender immediately after you're out of bankruptcy, with a subprime or non-prime lender about 3 months after you're out of bankruptcy, and with an institution like a chartered bank, you can get one 2 years and a day after you're out of bankruptcy. So
Wow.
a lot quicker than people think.
So, okay, how does somebody do that? How do you rebuild your credit rating?
Yeah, so what I've done is put together 5 steps on how to, how to put this all together. So we'll go through a bit of a game plan. We know that credit scores range from 300 to 900. You're trying to get to that 660 as far as where you'll start getting approved for things and getting decent rates. And once you hit that 741 rate, well, you know what? You're going to generally get the best rates out there. So I'll put a little game plan together. 5 steps to rebuilding your credit after a financial catastrophe bankruptcy proposal. So step number 1, it's all about assessing your current position and where you're at. So how do you do that? You obtain a free credit report from Equifax or TransUnion, the 2 credit reporting agencies in Canada. You take a look at that on their website. They've got tutorials on how to read that and how to really understand, and you kind of get your score, so you'll know your starting point. You can review for errors, and you can communicate with the creditors and fix any errors that you may have. And then you kind of make a note of your starting point. So if it's, okay, I'm starting at a 452, well, you know what, there you go. That's step 1, assess where you're at. Go to step 2. It's really about ensuring that you have stability. So stability is in the form of income. So you need regular, steady, reliable income, whether that's at a job or self-employed, whatever it is, that's the goal. And then you really need to have a budget. We've certainly got some online on our website, but you've got a budget that tracks income and expenses, and you need to stick with it. Discipline is what makes this all work. So that's step 2. Jump along to step 3. It's make the commitment to take ownership of your own personal credit and really the rebuilding process. And you do that by, it's quite simple. You pay your bills on time. You use less than 35% of your available credit. If you've got a $10,000 credit card, you use less than $3,500. You increase the length of your credit history. You limit credit applications. If you're out there shopping for things like crazy, your credit score is it's not going in the right direction. And then you use different types of credit. So then we move on to step 4. And step 4 is about building back or really buying back your credit. So we've got a game plan here that covers a few months. So month number 1, or say immediately, you obtain a secured credit card. You're essentially buying it. You put up a $500 deposit, you get a $500 credit card. It reports to the bureau. So that's month 1. You use it, you pay the balance in full. That could be a Capital One card, for example. Month 3, you do the same thing. You get another one. Maybe that's a Home Trust Visa. And now you've got 2 reporting at 3 months, which is exciting. At month 6, that's hard to say. At month 6, you look at an RSP loan or even a car loan. Now with a car loan, because you've got terrible credit at a 452, if you can get a car loan at that, you're going to pay about $100 monthly premium in extra interest, which over time that'll get better. But starter, that's what you're faced with. So buy an inexpensive car and be conservative. Month 12, go and obtain a department store credit card. It's 28.8% interest. So again, don't carry a balance, pay it off in full every month. So that's not an issue. Jump ahead to month 24. You can apply for a regular credit card with your financial institution or bank. And also you can look at another car loan at that time where you trade in your high rate, which could be a 30% car loan, for a 6, 7, 8% car loan. And then lastly, month 36, you're going to apply for a mortgage. If you've somehow been able to put 5 to 20% down, at that point, you're approvable on a mortgage because you've got all these trade lines that are reporting. Your score is going through the roof. And really, step 5 is just to check it annually, check your credit report annually, and watch and monitor.
And our audience can find out a lot more about Chris's company, Chris Smith of debtco.ca, and all of Chris's credits will be at the end of the show. And we want to give a big shout out to Global Restaurant for having us on their beautiful outdoor dining area. And we got through it with all the traffic noise even. So it's actually quite lovely out here. So thanks to the Global Group, and thank you, Chris Smith.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
This segment of Live Debt Free was brought to you by Debtco.ca, helping Canadians get out of debt based on ability. This New Zealand Spotlight is brought to you by our friends at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise.
Well, if you caught our last New Zealand Spotlight, you would have noticed we filmed from Jim's swanky bachelor pad. We are back and we're joined by Marcus Wright. He is the senior winemaker at Lawson's Dry Hills. That's located in Blenheim, which is the most populous town in the region of Marlborough, which is northeast of the South Island of New Zealand. Welcome, Marcus, to our city tonight.
Thank you. Nice to join you.
Hey, Mark, it's great to have you. You've been with Lawson since 2001. What is interesting when we do these New Zealand wine segments, you guys all seem to have this common trait where you've got to leave to learn your craft. And you, in this case, you worked in Chile, you worked in France, you come home. Talk a bit about your 20 years with Lawson and give us a little background on this company, which was started by Ross and Barbara Lawson in 1982.
Yeah, it seems to be a bit of a prerequisite for Kiwi winemakers. You have to go away. You have to learn a little about how things are done on the other side of the world, and then bring it home. Lawson's Dry Hills was started by Ross and Barbara Lawson in the early 90s. They actually planted the vineyard that's here around the winery where we make our Gewürztraminer. It was planted in the early 80s. They grew wine for one of the big companies making bag-in-the-box, just bulk wine. And in the early 90s, that company said, we don't want your grapes anymore. And Ross thought he grew pretty good grapes. So I'll start a wine brand. And that was the beginning of Lawson's Dry Hills Winery.
Well, let's talk about your carbon zero status and what that means for the winery.
I mean, I think it's the future. It's the future, not only for wine brands, but for brands around the world. We are essentially, as a winery, we're producing a luxury product. People don't want to be drinking a luxury product and damaging the planet. So, yeah, we're carbon neutral. And we also do a lot of things aside from that in terms of the way we care for our soil, the way we care for our vineyards.
And I want to just quickly mention, you were the first winery to go 100% screw cap on your wines.
Yeah, absolutely. So that goes all the way back to 2001, which was the year I started. And there have been a lot of problems here with corked wines and poor quality corks making their way to New Zealand. And Ross, with a group of other wineries, decided that they just had enough and there must be a better option. And we haven't looked back. So we went from 100% cork in 2000 to 100% screw cap in 2001. There was one distributor that Ross informed them they were taking wine with screw cap, not with cork, and they turned around and said no, they weren't going to take the wine. And then they phoned back like 24 hours later and said, okay, we'll take the screw.
Excellent. Hey, we should mention your wine, at the time we're doing this interview, your wine is en route on a ship coming across the water to BC. You're going to start with your exquisitely delicious Sauv Blanc. That'll be here and ready to roll for our viewers to try. But let's talk about, that's part of your estate range, but talk about the diversity in wines you do offer, including estate range, reserve range, and the Pioneer.
Yes, I've got the wines sitting next to me here. The estate range, it's really, we get beautiful fruit characters in Marlborough. We're just, partly it's the bright sunshine, it's higher UV, it's young soils, it's our viticulture, it's the way we focus on fruit through the winemaking process. And really the estate range is about, expressing the vineyard and the fruit character in the wine. The reserve wines tend to have a little more winemaking influence, wild ferment, barrel fermentation, and things like that. The Pioneer range is then usually, 2, 3, 4, 5 barrels set aside in a different interesting style depending on the year, and definitely not made every year.
Well, the certification, the Appellation Marlborough wine certification is obviously very important. It's similar to the DOP in Italy, which fashioned it after France to protect authenticity. Tell us a little bit about that and why that's important to your winery.
Well, the brand Marlborough is just so important to us particularly around Sauvignon Blanc. So in Marlborough we make Sauvignon Blanc like nobody else does in the world. It's that style that leaps out of the glass. You can usually smell it when you pour it in a glass. It's so vibrant and fresh. There are lots of other wine regions around the world chasing that style. And the idea is for us to give a sort of seal of approval to the wine so that customers can be assured that it's 100% Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. It's it's high quality. It really is a cut above everything else that's available. Yeah, it's a quality seal.
Well, as we have said before, New Zealand Sauv Blanc, #1 selling in our country. Marcus, thanks for joining us Friday morning. We didn't even ask you where you are. You're in Blenheim, correct?
I'm in Blenheim. Yeah, so it is the biggest town in Marlborough, but that's not saying a lot.
Well, we're doing our part to support Sauvignon Blanc. It's not 10 o'clock in the morning here. It is actually in the afternoon.
It is for you.
You guys.
Hey, listen, Marcus, thanks for joining us. Marcus Wright, senior winemaker at Lawson's Dry Hills Winery. He's been with them since 2001. And folks, check their wine out. It will be on shelves here in BC and I think in Ontario as well. Marcus, thanks very much for joining us on Our City Tonight.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
This New Zealand Spotlight has been brought to you by our friends at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise.
Well, we're back here at Hubcast Studios where we began the show, and it's time to say goodbye.
Yes, but before we go, we want to invite you to like us on our YouTube channel, follow us, as well as our Facebook page and Instagram, as well as Twitter at Our City Tonight.
I'm Jim Gordon.
And I'm Lita Leapins.
We'll see you on the next edition of Our City Tonight.
Outdoor wear for Jim and Lita provided by Helly Hansen, alive since 1877.
Soluzione Spa Products, a national luxury spa product distribution company located in North Vancouver, British Columbia.